Matthew Ehret is a journalist, lecturer, and founder of the Canadian Patriot Review. He is a prolific author and true independent thinker. This week, he published a piece in the Cradle about Xi Jinping's visit to Saudi Arabia, which was our starting off point for the discussion. However, as you will see very quickly, we veered off that and covered a wide variety of topics. For my part, I listened and tried to learn and put my own conclusions together. And while you may not agree with all of Ehret's ideas and theories, he will certainly give you plenty to think about. Ultimately, the takeaway from this discussion with this fascinating Canadian was, while that far from perfect, the United States of America is indeed an exceptional nation, and that the people of this country have a lot more power than they think. And why is that? Well, it's because of something called the Constitution. And Matthew joins us now. Thank you, Matthew, so much for being here.
Thank you, Allison, for having me on.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Now, today you had an article that came out on the Cradle about Xi Jinping's visit to Saudi Arabia, and we could tell it was a close visit. They rolled out the red carpet that was a little different than what we saw a while back when President Biden went there. What did you see?
Xi Jinping arrived there yesterday. They have now the first China-Arab summit that's going to be tomorrow. That's the end of Xi Jinping's visit. They're going to sign about $30 billion of various economic deals touching on everything. This will involve also China's investment into nuclear. China's already committed with Saudi Arabia to help Saudi Arabia develop nuclear power, to look beyond the petroleum age only and to look into the next, because nuclear is really good. That's one of the things that the Davos crew wants to destroy ultimately, because it gives us a lot of power of national sovereignty to do things that involve creating abundance very cost effectively, even though people have been induced to be afraid of it.
Absolutely. There are so many people, especially, for example, in Pennsylvania, they keep talking about how there's all of this energy underground that can be fostered or harvested. I don't even know what the term would be. And so we could use that to turn the country around.
Yeah, there's so many ways. There's so much abundance potential in America and Canada. It's crazy. We have so much uranium. There's so many, the shale oil development potential, the natural gas. All that Biden has consciously shut down development on, or made it impossible economically to even do offshore oil drilling. That's increasingly become allowed to even do that increasingly anymore. You can't get investments from or loans from most of the Wall Street banks that have signed on to the Mark Carney Bankers Climate Compact that says only green banking is going to be permitted, not dirty brown banking.
Yeah.
So China doesn't buy that. Saudi Arabia doesn't buy that. They have basically sabotaged every effort to create a one world green government since COP14 back in 2009. China and India together basically said we're not going to sign on to any of the legally binding agreements to reduce our carbon output that were being expected to do under Obama. They locked themselves in a room in 2019. They made 2009, and they did it again in 2014. They did it again in 2015. They did it again last year, and they did it again essentially this year too. By sometimes, if anything, they'll sign on to something like a paper that says, yeah, we all want a clean earth and sustainable development. But anything which is legally binding, they have not done. And in fact, they've gone and increased their coal production, oil production, natural gas production, every level to historic limits, because ultimately their leadership isn't scientifically stupid. They know that we're not causing global warming. Their primary interest is ending mass starvation, poverty, and hunger. That's like the interest for most countries of the world that are outside of the European transatlantic zone of insanity. They really just want to end poverty and starvation and scarcity. That's what their priority is. So, like Saudi Arabia has put their eggs in the Asian basket. The US trade with Saudi Arabia has collapsed from, I think it was $76 billion of trade in 2012. Today it's about $28 billion. That's a huge collapse. Whereas in China, same proportion in the opposite direction. Russia too, and Saudi Arabia has the BRICS plus, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa plus, and you have Turkey as well as Egypt, who've also applied to join. Same thing for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Saudi Arabia is now a observing member state along with Egypt. So many points where they're all pretty much in agreement that they don't population collapse, they don't want to get rid of their sovereignty, and they want to instead have abundance, overcoming limits to growth. That's their orientation. In the ideologues running the Western part of the world currently, they want to do the very opposite of each of those things. So there will be a new world order. I mean, I don't want to say this in a scary way, but there will be a new system that will replace the current collapsing system. The current collapsing system cannot do anything but collapse. The question right now is, what will be the moral and intellectual, what will be the operating system, and who is it going to serve that replaces the current dying one? That's why I say Glass-Steagall is one really good first step. If we want to get the right trajectory, let that blow out. Let the Wall Street bankers take the pain. It doesn't have to hit middle America and savings and everything. That can be protected, but you got to do something like Glass-Steagall. You got to break up the crap toxic waste from the banks and preserve the healthy tissue. And that healthy tissue has to be rehabilitated. The sort of same way that was done in the 1930s, when we built the development, the infrastructure projects of the 30s is a great example of what we do into the 40s and under JFK as well. Great examples of how the nation can mobilize itself to heal itself in a very long-term thinking way. Really good stuff. So the precedents are there. And if we start with a movement that can really channel a focused message, right, around, we need to do what has worked every single time we've ever done it. Do that again. It's constitutional. It's it's right there. And every time it's done, the oligarchy loses their power over us. We gain more power over them. We get smarter, we get better, we get more productive, we get more sovereign. Our military becomes based upon defense, not imperial projection of power. That's great, because then nations trust us when we're not trying to destroy them to make them dependent on us. We have more trustworthy allies around the world who want to work with us. That's all good. That always works. It never doesn't. So we have to just think about those sorts of things and then see that countries like Russia, China, India, who have this survivors bond of alliance, we should look at them as like the water to help put out our fire, not like the devils who were being, there's like a lot of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, reframing, messaging that's repeated to try to get us to see that the water is like somehow our enemy and we need more fire or more gasoline to put on our house that's on fire.
So to wrap things up, you really shed light on so many different topics tonight and really give me a lot to think about. What would be your final words, or really words of hope and straight talk to everyday Americans who I think are very upset right now after the midterm elections? What can you say to them to give them some hope?
The enemies of America, are very real. They are a lot weaker than believe. The posture coming out of the NATO, Davos transhumanist nexus right now, the posture that we see coming out of them, especially on the matter of their desperation, their hasty actions in Ukraine, their desperation in Taiwan to basically spread a policy that could only lead to nuclear war if they continue to double down in that direction, as well as Satanism. I mean, they're like doubling down in overconfidence right now with full-blown Satanism in the school system, in every other part of our lives. It's like getting really hard to ignore. Now, that type of confidence is not a confidence that comes from a reality. It comes from, I think, a sense of insecurity that their grip is ultimately slipping, as all of the nations of the world that were all supposed to be together in the building that was supposed to be detonated in a controlled demolition of the world economy, they're no longer in the building. They've left, and they're running out of time. They're getting hectic. They're getting desperate, because if the system blows And you have these other countries that have left the building and have created a functional alternative economic security system that works for the people, then that will spread and become the new system and not this unipolar death cult system that they want to bring online. That is an important thing to hold in mind. In that sense, weaker, although a wounded animal is still a dangerous animal. There's still a lot of chaos that they could do because of that point. I would also say that the American people are in many ways stronger than you thought you were. You have more power with the constitutional form of law that you have access to that Canadians don't have that. The best we can do, I think, right now is freedom convoy type of organic organizing in Canada. The court systems, all of these things are run mostly in Canada by deep state operatives, and that's embedded to the core. Whereas the deep state of America is an add-on. Your foundation is solid. The Constitution, and so you got this other thing, which foreign agency adding onto it that can be extracted. In our case, it's going to be a lot more difficult. The Canadian, the creation of an independent sovereign Canada is a little bit further down the line. Battle has to be won in the U.S. in my assessment first. So again, if you really, really focus so hard on looking at what Trump's policies were, do more of that which makes your enemies afraid, because what Trump was doing made them afraid. And we've been given a lot of cartoonish rehashings bearing on reality of what Trump was. Focus on what he was doing and focus on what people, again, who scared the oligarchy. And again, 8 American presidents died while in office. I wrote 3 books going through each one of these presidents, all the way up through JFK and his brother, who would have been president in '68. Look at what they're all doing. What are the policies? What is the foreign policy? Whose power are they challenging? How are they doing it? How are they building the things that they're building that elevate the American people in a better way? They're all doing the same thing. So if we actually study these things, I would say, as a self plug, read my trilogy on the Clash of the Two Americas from 1774 all the way up till the future, where these things are analyzed. Do more of that. It's all there, and we just have to get more organized, more clear-headed in where the misinfo is coming from, and be more disciplined. I guess that's the other thing I would say. Like, we're too inclined to look. Obviously, I believe in heroes. I believe in great people, but at the same time, sometimes we have to find that within us too. And like, a lot of people are being very susceptible right now to wanting to like latch on to like Elon Musk, right? So there's this tendency to see him as like the new hero who's broken with the richest man in the world, has Barkey, and is now declaring war on the deep state, and he's one of us. Who knew? Yay! He's kind of a similar synthetic personality as Justin Trudeau. He's on that level. Not saying it's not good that truth about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop is not made available, that Twitter participated in, or shadow banning, that we should know about. That's good. We can use that information. But we're being entrapped to overlook the fact that he is an open occultist, Satanist, transhumanist, working on building mRNA tech with 3D printing through one of his companies, working on the industrial complexes, Starlink systems used to overthrow governments.
Yeah, it's the Neuralink is like, I'm watching the monkey playing the Pong. I'm freaking out. So yeah. I don't know, but if I'm from one journalist to another journalist and I say, okay, let's not bury the lead, I think we have to say, or at least what I'm going to say is, remember the Constitution.
Remember the Constitution. There you go. Yeah, let's do that. Remember the Constitution. I love that. Exactly. And then be aware of misinformation psyops. Just be aware as you're walking through that minefield, how this thing works. Take the good where you can get it. Don't go full hog into one thing or another, because honestly, they want to get us all back on Twitter. They're trying to give Twitter like a facelift to make it seem like something we all now see as like the great thing to jump back into. Whereas Elon Musk has even said he wants like Twitter to become this X, right? This one-stop shop, everything media thing where you have your banking, social media, everything in one spot.
Your crypto and all that stuff.
Yeah. Perfect for social credit.
Maybe it's more than remember the Constitution. Maybe I will reframe that. Read the Constitution. How about that?
Hey, yeah. I say that for my Canadian friends too. I mean, read the US Constitution, compare it to the Canadian Constitution, then see which one you think is more viable. I'm always telling people, they're like, why do you like America so much? I'm like, read their Constitution, look at their history, compare it to ours, which says we founded a government in the interest of the British Empire. It's like, that's our preamble. Like, come on. You have something good, something very good that needs to be protected and used in battle.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this with me. I apologize if I was a little slow in parts, but I was just trying to take it in and understand it. And I'm willing to be the person that says, I don't understand what's going on. I'm hearing this, help me, we're going insane.
It's very courageous. Very courageous. You got to do that. That's great.
But I do know that there are good people, and you're certainly one of them. And I appreciate you helping me and helping my audience. So I hope you'll come back again.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you.